Please don't ask me how much money I spent on any of this. Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Mildly Gothic. If you're new here, what I like to do is a variety of artsy things. And the biggest thing I just did is I went to Huntsville's Comic and Pulp Culture Expo. So, they say it's basically Alabama's biggest geek out. The biggest draw this year was they had William Shatner. And then for me, additionally, Gates McFadden, who plays Dr. Beverly Crusher on Next Generation, Brent Spiner, who plays Data on Next Generation, and John Delancey, who plays Q on Next Generation. So I was absolutely stoked to see all of them. But in the back of my mind, like, I'm a huge nerd, and I love Halloween and costumes, so how could I go to something that's basically my local Comic-Con and not put together a cosplay? So even though I just expressed interest in all of the Star Trek characters, I've been putting together a Star Wars cosplay. If you haven't seen my progress, I've been posting videos of the info bars in that corner of kind of how I've been going through so far. I at least, at this point in time, because I'm not sure when I'm releasing this, but I've at least released the chest, the apron, and the gloves as far as how I put those together. First, I'm going to be talking about just kind of my general experience at the convention. I've never been to one before, so it was really exciting for me personally to just kind of like be there. And then two, the cosplay and how it went wearing it to the convention, and then kind of things I learned or things I want to change. So first off, how was the event? It was really, really fun. I spent a good bit of money. I love earrings. And even though I do jewelry, I look for things that I can't or currently don't make myself. So these are some resin koi fish that I got. One's white and one's black. I think they're super cute. I'll put some pictures up of the other ones because they're going to be a little hard to see. But I have these really cool black hearts with fire in them. And then I also got these two little pairs of studs, little rocket ships, and then the Vulcan live long and prosper symbol. Other little things that I got. I do have the business cards for most of these little small businesses, so I will be putting their information in my description because they're wonderful and they deserve some attention. So if any of these earrings are things that you're interested in, go check them out. As I say that, unfortunately, the one that I don't think I have the business card for, I got a little ghost dude. He's just a little resin, a little desk, basically a paperweight, but I mean, he's ridiculously adorable, so he needs a name. Still working on that, but I purchased, actually, my boyfriend bought this for me because he's wonderful, but yes, I have a little ghost dude. And then I bought dice. These are gorgeous. These have tiny, I think they're crow skulls in them, or ravens, actually, since the set is called Raven Queen. But I took more close-up pictures, but they've got gold leaf in them, they've got these beautiful purple flowers, and then they've also got these small little skulls. And if you know anything about me, I like my skulls. So I got those as well. Those are all kind of like the small little tchotchkes and stuff I got from vendors. The other thing I spent my time and money on was autographs. It should be noted, I did pay the money to get the VIP pass for this convention. I actually went for the top tier VIP, which didn't just get me the t-shirt, it got me a hockey jersey. So it says Huntsville, Comic and Pop Culture Expo on it. That's kind of fun. Huntsville's weirdly a pretty big hockey city, so they were probably tying into that. But the biggest thing that I went for was photographs and signatures. And so I was most specifically excited for the Star Trek people. And so I spent the money, and I got a photograph with all of them. There was a plastic dividing wall, and this wasn't up for all of the photo ops because I did see some of the others, but this was up at least for William Shatner specifically, and through all of the group ones that included him. But even still, I think that was very, very fun. But even with all of that, I was still able to approach them for photographs. So I don't know how much of the paintings on the wall behind me have been visible, but all of this stuff behind me is my own artwork, and two of them have been Star Trek themed. So one of them is very, very obvious, which is this one. This one does not have any signatures. I thought about it, but I decided to go with the other one, and I got all four of them to sign my own painting. And this one is Star Trek themed in the fact that there's two D7s hiding right here. Those are the classic Kirk generation Klingon warbirds, birds of prey. My father can yell at me in the comments for that one. But I have all four of their signatures. This is Gates McFadden, Brent Spiner, William Shatner right in the center, and then John Delancey on the side. That was really fun because those were separate from the photograph, but I got to speak more one-on-one with them. It was a lot more chill, relaxed. The photograph, they had such a long line of people. It was in and out and in and out. And if I had to say if the VIP was worth anything, it was worth it for the autograph lines, because they were basically taking you before they took the other people. So it kind of expedited it. So I was able to get more done in the day with having that. So I think it was worth it from that regard, but mostly because I knew I wanted the signatures. If I wasn't going for autographs, I don't know that I would have gone for the VIP pass. That's just kind of a general statement. That's really what the benefit was, and we got in 30 minutes early. So that was kind of nice on Friday to get the scope around and see what was going on. But other than that, if you're not going for autographs, at least for this event, I don't know that VIP was worth it. So that's just something I'm going to keep in mind in the future if I go to other conventions. If I'm looking for autographs, it's probably worth it. If not, I don't know. So do with that information as you will. I have no influence or say over anything. But as far as the event itself, everybody was super nice. It was really, really fun. Talked to a lot of different people, collected business cards, and spent a lot of time on Saturday sweating. So I'm going to transition into talking about how the cosplay went. But I've been working on it for, oh God, I don't even know. It's at least like 2 to 3 months, at least. And it's kind of one of those things of like, what if everybody hates it? Like, what if I get there and nobody recognizes who it is, or all of that? And so I'd set myself the hopefully realistic expectation that I wanted one person to ask for my picture. I just wanted one. And so we got out of the car and I got suited up in the apron, the belt, the armor. The only thing I didn't have on was her helmet. I was holding the balaclava and her helmet, and I think the gloves as well, and the hammer, and we walked to the convention center so that I could put those on when we got inside. And we stepped off to the side, me and Jacob put our gloves on, helped me get my helmet on, and then I noticed that there was somebody who'd been standing off to the side and kind of was looking at us. And literally as soon as I put my helmet on, he was like, "Hey, can I get a picture?" And immediately my day was made. I mean, I was seconds within becoming the armorer and somebody could already ask for my picture. So like that kind of blew me out of the park. Like that was really, really awesome. Everybody seemed to recognize me. I would be walking by, I got stopped for pictures constantly. People were super, super nice about it. I got a picture of my own. I found a Mandalorian cosplayer, basically one of the best ones that I found. There were several, but I got a picture with him because how could I not? It was really, really fun. It was a little overwhelming, I'm gonna be honest, to be stopped every, so bit for taking pictures. But that's the great thing about having a character with a helmet on. Nobody could see that I was freaking out inside. So things to know for future cosplays, helmeted characters equal good for anxiety. Bad for vision though. My peripheral vision was very limited, and her helmet is very long, so as far as turning your neck, that really wasn't an option because of how long it sits, so you're sitting with your head very high up and kind of unable to move. I was kind of having to turn my entire body. But as far as how reception went, she was instantly recognizable, which is really what I was going for. The other big feedback I got is a lot of people didn't believe that it was my first time putting together a costume. Some of you people who are watching this video now may have seen the cosplay and then decided to subscribe to my channel. Hello, welcome. Again, I'm not sure when this is getting posted, if I will post my other videos first or if I'm going to post this sooner. We'll see. Regardless, eventually there will be a playlist of all of the stuff that I have done towards this cosplay on this channel, which I think is really, really fun. So now let's get into the, let's say, there's a mix of functional and aesthetic changes that I kind of want to make to the costume moving forward. To start, this is probably the piece I'm the least happy with. They put a purple zip tie on it to mark it as not a real weapon. One, I didn't realize until watching season 3, I started this costume before I'd started watching season 3, and that meant that I was working off all the reference images I had online, which didn't include anything from season 3, because season 3 she turns around, more than she's ever turned around in any other thing she's been in. Like in season 1, she turns around, and you see this a lot more. So this is not a point. This actually is a rounded, very beveled thing. So first of all, this is completely wrong. I also think I need to adjust the hammerhead size. I think it needs to be a little bit smaller. Unsure on that. And also I don't know that I like the color that much. And the handle is not supposed to have a bunt on the end. It kind of flares and tapers out. I just didn't have enough time to actually try to work with the hammer like that. There's also supposed to be kind of like flares on either side that are kind of welding the hammerhead to the stick. So there's a lot of aesthetic changes I want to make to this, but as far as functionality, this was really handy. I kept sticking it in my belt loop on the side when I didn't want to keep holding it anymore, so that was really nice and handy. So recommend having an easy way to hang your weapons in case you get tired of holding them. But this functionally worked very, very well. I mean, it, you know, wobbles. There's a little bit of a bend to it. You can tell where the break is and the two sticks inside. But, I mean, it's pretty sturdy for what I needed it to be for a first weapon. I think it did great. I would add a little bit more, I think, weathering. It's still too shiny of a silver as well, in my opinion. So, as far as functionally, great. Aesthetically, I have a lot of changes I want to do to this in particular. So let's do the armor next. Honestly, I think the only thing I really want to change about the armor is I think I can do better with the paint job. I also think I can do better in filling in some of the gapping there. I didn't do the best as far as getting all of that set. It looks good from a distance, but up close, I'm really picky with myself. So up close, I think I really want to address a lot of that. The back, I don't think really needs any changes other than the hot glue seams are ugly and disgusting on this, but luckily I don't think anybody saw those. If we were to get into further aesthetics, this is still not accurate to her. This is supposed to gap away from the under chest plate. I was trying to account for it and then kind of completely forgot as I was gluing things down. So this is still technically, while it looks good, it's not accurate to hers. So as far as aesthetically, that's I think the only other thing I would change. So better, you know, work with my gapping and then also trying to really establish that rift, I don't know, the slant that she has between the detail on top and then the base chest plate. The fur, this actually worked quite well. I do kind of wish I'd gotten it more up on my shoulders, but I think to also address that, it needs to sit puffier. So hers, this one sits very flat, but in reality, I think it needs to puff up more. So I'd probably do that by sewing some foam or something to the inside of the fur to get it to sit higher and rest better on the shoulders, or just adding, you know, more layers of fur. That's only the really thing that I think was wrong with the fur, is it wasn't pronounced enough. Hers is big, thick, very much a pelt on her shoulders, and I just kind of have, look, it's a little carpet. So it's not pelt yet, we have carpet. I think I could change, I could make that better as well. But the connection I think worked quite nicely. It actually, I was also able to put this on just over my head. There's actually enough space that I was able to just slip it on over my head without having to detach this consistently. But it was nice to know that I could if I wanted to. The only thing that was kind of annoying is the chest armor was so wide, I couldn't fix my left shoulder with my right hand. So I kept trying to do that and then be like, switch what I'm holding into my right hand and then fix this fur and then switch it back over and then fix this one. So that was a little annoying, but her chest plate is again unique. And if you look at a lot of the Mandalorians, it's just kind of stuck, like it's a center panel. Bo-Katan's, it's a center panel on her chest. It doesn't wrap. It's attached to the undershirt, which is, you know, a full undershirt. But the Armorer's is actually like a full body. It wraps around her sides. Granted, you don't see under the fur, but I made a whole back plate and all that as well. So chest plate is really mostly aesthetic differences. Functionally, other than not being able to touch my shoulder, worked great. Held up beautifully, all of the glue stuck together, everything was perfect. Let's get into the helmet. Aesthetically, I think I need a richer gold color. Also, her helmet is supposed to have a little bit of a ridge right here, kind of similar to this. This does not have it, so that would need to be added as well. I'm in love with the weathering I did on this. I did weather it kind of according to Disney just released a prop helmet for her, and it is very weathered and very dirty, and I kind of did mine to that, which looks very aggressive in person, but it actually photographs really well. So I don't think I would change anything about the weathering, because I actually got a lot of compliments on the weathering for this helmet, which I was very, very pleased with, because I hand, painted all of that detail myself. But I do think the base needs to be a richer gold color. The other thing is, I was impatient when putting this window tint in. So the front layer has all of these creases and such. It doesn't come across on camera. On camera, it actually photographs beautifully. But in person, you can see that it's kind of like, crinkled and dented. And nobody ever commented on it. But I know, and I can see it, so it bothers me. So as far as something else I would change, that's what I would do. The only thing I had to modify to this to make it functional to wear is there's just a piece of foam. It's not even glued. It's just a piece of foam that I stuck in there and it stayed the whole time. I never had any problems with it coming out. The only thing I would change in regards to that, and I got this recommendation, but I did not have enough time to implement it, was, so I wore a balaclava, I braided my hair, and then I folded them up and kind of tucked them so all of my hair was up on my head, and because I didn't want to deal with it down my neck, like that was just going to get gross and sweaty. I was told that it was a good idea to get tiny magnets and basically glue them to the balaclava and glue them to corresponding points inside the helmet so it turned with you and stayed in place. I can definitely see why that's helpful, because as I would nod my head, it would shift, and so I was kind of constantly readjusting the helmet, but overall, it fits. I was able to see out of it just fine. I was actually able to wear it pretty consistently for decent lengths of time. I kept taking it off because it was easier to talk to people and have them hear me when I didn't have it on. So that's kind of the main reason I kept taking it off, which everybody was always like, I'm reporting you, you took your helmet off. And I was like, I know, I'm sorry. You know, she's the one character that really like doesn't ever, but it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. I'm really happy with it. I kept getting a lot of compliments on the helmet in particular. So shout out to Chris for 3D printing it for me. Thanks. But functionally, helmet worked great. I just need to add a few things to it. I don't need to change anything about it, except aesthetically. Aesthetically, it needs some fixes. Undershirt. Undershirt worked great. I had honestly no problems with this whatsoever. This was actually a really good material. It's just your kind of like standard like cotton t-shirt. So it was pretty breathable. And so when I was sweating, it was never really like hot and heavy and stayed, because this undershirt was quite breathable and quite nice. So aesthetically, I do have some changes. These are not what her sleeves look like. These just aren't. They just aren't. And I knew that, but I kind of didn't have time to really try to figure out how I wanted to architect her real sleeves, which are supposed to be cap sleeves, just literally just like this shirt, cap sleeves with the cross hatching on them. That way, I didn't really have time to figure out how to architect that together, and I also didn't want to limit my upward movement any more than my armor was already going to. So I went with this. So these, in order to be costume accurate, these definitely need to be changed, but they were perfectly fine for what they were, and I think got the point across. I'm not even going to talk about the pants. Pants worked fine. Pants were great. I love the pants. Now, these are something special. So I'm going to explain a little bit. These were technically the 2.0 version of my boot covers, because I originally made the toe caps out of clay. Don't ask me why I thought that was a good idea, but also at the time, I hadn't approached making the chest plate yet, so the thought of foam somehow just didn't come to mind. So I ditched these, which I don't think look very good, in favor of these, which I think look structurally, we're talking structurally here, much, much better. These overall have some problems. They actually worked quite well. There's elastic under here to keep the shoe in place. That works just fine. It extends a little bit over the toe, so walking was a bit odd. That really wasn't a problem. Functionally, these worked just fine. The only functional change I really want to make is I honestly think I'm going to replace the Velcro with a zipper. I think that would be a lot more consistent. But that was kind of my thought before the con, because I was really worried that they were just going to like fall off. They never fell off. They stayed on perfectly fine. So probably not that big of a deal, but I also just think having it be a zipper in the back would just be a little bit of a cleaner look, and I think that's kind of what I want to go for. Color. I had such a problem with color in this entire cosplay, and I think I've mentioned it in previous videos. Her costume is so hard to get color accurate. I thought these looked really good color-wise until I saw pictures of the costume, and I realized just how bright red these are. These are way too bright. So like the color of these is completely off. I think I need to dumb them down, make them a little bit browner. I was gonna say, or maybe throw the bronze on top, but they really aren't metallic. They're just kind of like metal. So I think these need to be more brown because they're a little aggressively red. It's the shoes. Nobody's really gonna look at the shoes. I look at the shoes. So like, this is not the color I want. I need to change this color, like dramatically. But functionally, I think they work great. Structurally, I mean, they look exactly like what they're supposed to, minus the color. I'm also not super happy with the color of this. I repainted these like 4 times because I could not get the color right, in my opinion. This is probably the best of what I got, because it is kind of like a grayish dark brown. I tried to match it to the color in the center of her belt. Functionally, these were just fine. I just have some changes that I think would serve me better in the future. And aesthetically, color is like all wrong, at least for the toe caps. These I think are probably fine and may look better when this color is addressed. So, you know, there's the boot covers. And the boot covers have the little red thing that went around them. I think that was perfectly fine. It was just Velcro in the back, like no complaints with those functionally, aesthetically. I think they were great. So next up is the belt. This honestly worked just fine. The belt closure is a little weird in the back with the way I had it overlap, so it's just really hard to get on, but after that it stays just fine, and it's hidden in the back, so it bubbled a little bit, but I think it was perfectly fine. Functionally, worked great. Never had any problems, never fell off, none of that jazz. Stayed exactly where it was supposed to be. Aesthetically, I love the leather that I did to this belt. I don't think aesthetically I would change anything except these. I want to 3D print these and make them look better, maybe have a little bit more detail, and just make them overall, I mean, let's not look at this one too hard. He's a special, but like there's not a lot of detail, they're not that interesting, so aesthetically, I want to make those cooler. But functionally, just fine. Like I'm probably gonna, this is like so low on the list of things to figure out how to make a better closure. It worked perfectly fine. It looked great. I love the belt. This is actually one of my favorite pieces, which may be a little crazy, but I'm really happy with how the belt came out. Moving on to the apron. No complaints. I got honestly the most compliments on this, and people kept wondering how I made it. Which one, there's a video for that. But two, it was actually, personally, when putting together this costume, one of the easiest parts. It was very time consuming. There's a lot of pieces to cut out. There's a lot of stuff to put together, but like, really it wasn't that hard to put together. And actually, so I said in the video that I may end up taking off the waistband, and I actually didn't because it helped me find a good marker as far as how far down the belt needed to go. So I just covered the top with the belt, which also then ended up helping cover the Velcro connection in the back because that was a little messy. So then the belt sat over it, and I didn't have to worry about it at all. Versus if I had taken off the waistband, then that closure would be underneath the belt. So the belt covered the closure, which looked a lot cleaner in the back. Again, it's the back, it's fine. Aesthetically, there's a few things I want to do to this. I don't think I have the dimensions right for how much the apron needs to wrap around versus how wide the tabard needs to be, because if you look at photos, it's supposed to, there shouldn't be gaps. The fabric should completely basically cover it. Mine doesn't, mine gaps on the sides, so I don't think I adjusted the dimensions right. Now, how I'm gonna fix this is not by remaking the skirt or the main wraparound part. I'm probably gonna remake the center tabard, and I'm just gonna make it a little bit wider because I think that's gonna be the best compromise, best use of my time, best use of materials, to just make that tabard section a little bit wider so I close that gapping. Because I mentioned it in my video that that was like the one thing that I wasn't happy with. I didn't fix that by the time I was presenting this cosplay, but it'll work out. Otherwise, so functionally, no problems. Thing worked great. Aesthetically, tabard needs to be a little bit wider. Also, I don't really like the white Velcro, but like that is such a small point. So this was a great part. I got so many compliments on this. People were wondering how I made it. And this, I think, is the most visually accurate part of her entire costume that I put together. So this is one of the things I am most proud of. This and the belt are probably like my top two things, other than the helmet, but I don't take as much credit for that because I did have somebody else 3D print it. I just take credit for the paint job. Last thing, the gloves. So I already knew the helmet was going to be a little bit of a problem as far as being overheated or, you know, not being able to see. I should have expected this. These were so hot. I kept pulling these off because I was like dying of heat. If I started overheating, took the helmet off, took the gloves off, and suddenly I was cooling down. Like I was fine. My waist section was a little bit warm because I had like the shirt, the pants, and the layers of like the apron and the belt. So that was a little warm, but like that was manageable. My hands got so hot. So what I think I'm going to try to do, so this is a functional change. I'm going to try to cut vents or like open up some of these seams on the insides of these fingers just a little bit to make them slightly more breathable, because if they could get any airflow in the glove, I think I might be able to actually survive in them for a lot longer. So that's my real one thing with the gloves, is these were actually one of the most annoying things simply due to how much they trap heat. I was wearing them for 6 hours. I wore this entire costume for about 6 hours, from about 12 to 6. So the only things I ever took off all day was the helmet and the gloves. Everything else stayed on for 6 hours. I was able to survive in everything else except the helmet and gloves. So if that kind of tells you anything, these were killer. So That was a little annoying, so I think I'm gonna make those modifications, but otherwise aesthetically, I think the gloves work just fine. Ideally, would I remake these completely so that I could get a more detailed quilting pattern? Yeah, but that's like really low on my like things that need to aesthetically change to look accurate. Granted, once I address everything else, these will probably stick out like a sore thumb, so they are on the list, but they're like at the very bottom of the list. Like I don't think they're really that much of a problem. But I think if I made a little bit more airflow, that they would be easier to wear. The last thing is, you probably saw that I made her tongs. I didn't take them with me. One, they were kind of flimsy, they weren't really stable, and I didn't think they looked the best. They looked worse than this thing. So I left those home, and so those are very high on my list of functional and aesthetic things that I would change if I were to do this again. Like, they need a massive overhaul. But in general, I was recognized for the character that I was complimented for the work and effort that I put in, and I had a lot of fun. And I think that's the most important part. Like, you couldn't see it under the helmet, but I was glowing every time somebody asked me for a picture. Like, how cool is that? I'm just some random person walking around, and they thought that what I did was really cool. So if you're one of the people watching who happened to find me from the Comic-Con, thank you so much. It's wonderful to have you. I hope you stick around for all of the other wonderful artsy chaos that I create. Expect to see probably videos of me working on this in the future. I have other ideas coming down as far as things I want to work on. There's one costume that I really want to work on that is not a cosplay. It's just a costume idea that I've literally been sitting on for over a year now. And then I have another one that is, I now know how to make armor, and now I want to do like the most ambitious thing that I could ever possibly conceive of because it'd be cool. We'll see how long it takes me to get to that. I've got tons of ideas for cosplays, so whether this becomes more of a regular thing that I do or just kind of interspersed amongst all of my other ones, I'm not sure. If you want to see more cosplays from me, and if you have ideas of characters that you think would be really fun, definitely leave them in the comments down below. Even if it's not a full costume, if they have an interesting enough, face or makeup, I may do a special effects makeup with them instead. So there's a lot of options. But regardless, thank you so much for watching. If you've gotten to this point in the video, you might as well hit like or subscribe because you sat around here for long enough in my little corner of the internet. Stick around. It's nice to have you here. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed my rambles about this costume, and I will see you in the next one.
As the Armorer from Star Wars.